Ciara, thank you so much. That was just fascinating. I'm going to open up conversation, and anybody who would just like to give a shout out to Ciara, feel free. I just set my view here that I can see everybody. So anybody who would just like to give some feedback there about Ciara's experiences of engaging with critical reflection. Mary, I see you have your hand up.
I want to get my speaking early. Ciara, well done. I was absolutely certain you'd do a blinder, and you have. And the honesty and the authenticity of what you spoke about bringing about a change in your way of thinking, really, about critical reflection. And I can see from the comments, I can't actually access the text box, but I can see from the comments that everybody, it's resonating with so many people. So well done and thank you.
Great, short and sweet, Mary. Okay, Jack, you wanted to comment.
Yeah, it's just, Ciara, I do hope you watch a recording of your presentation, because whilst it was really powerful, that sense of imposter syndrome, you also, for me, express in your presentation what I call a life-affirming energy that I believe you will be expressing as an educator. And when you explain the nature of your influence, I'm just curious about whether this energy of yours, which I find life-affirming, comes into your explanation.
Do you want to respond there, Ciara, or?
I'm not entirely sure how to respond, Jack. Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, it's this at the moment. This is being recorded, and
Yeah.
at this very moment, the smiles and the pleasure, just as you're speaking, it communicates through this medium. And don't try and respond now, but I do hope we're in contact as you look at a recording and just to see what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Okay. And so let me see. Boana, do you want to comment?
Yes, I do want to, because I resonated a lot with her, because I'm also asking the same research question for my PhD, and just as Jack Whitehead mentioned, that I also felt a life-affirming energy, and we do have the same methodology as well. And I just wanted to add what Whitehead mentioned, that I felt empathic resonance. And yes, when she would go back and watch this video, she could literally see if she would just scroll it to where I'm talking, she could literally see the changes in my whole facial expressions as well. So that is how I felt connected to her, and the way she has expressed her own vulnerabilities, and the way she was talking about her own failures. And there was so much that I could resonate. Also, I'm really excited at this moment, because we are from different countries, and whatever I felt as an educator in Nepal, it's similar to what she has shared in her presentation. So there's so much in common. I'm really happy, and happy that someone else is also feeling the same way, though it's questioning, we are questioning our own values, but I'm happy that you're also feeling that. It's mutual. So yeah, that's it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Boana. And you two ladies might communicate with one another after we're finished here, if you like. Great. Heather, did you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the talk and all the thinking that had gone behind that, because although it was really quick, there was obviously a huge amount of thinking that had gone behind the statements that you made within the presentation. And I was really fascinated, because I was here when Stephen Brookfield was talking at the NEARIMeet, and to hear Stephen Brookfield talking about his own imposter syndrome, I found absolutely fascinating, and I thought it was lovely how you brought that into the presentation. Thank you, Ciara.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Anybody else want to toss a question over? I have one myself, Ciara, and I don't really expect you to answer it, although if you do have the answer, feel free. I'm just wondering, we often read, say, Parker Palmer, and he talks about how we teach who we are and how our teaching mirrors who we are, and we bring our values that we hold to our teaching. And I'm just wondering, how do you draw that line between bringing yourself as a person your teaching, and then thinking as a professional, and to, you know, to kind of strengthen yourself up against the harsh emails and and that kind of thing?
Well, I suppose as well, that's kind of coming back as well to Brookfield, talking about the lens of experience as well. Like, we teach who we are and we teach our experiences. And I don't know, maybe will this also kind of touch on what Jack is wondering about. And I suppose relationships and connections are so important to me, and particularly, I suppose, working in a DET Band 1 school, which would be in a disadvantaged area. And I sometimes feel that the role that I've had, you know, I wasn't in one of those schools myself, but I taught in one all the years I was in the classroom before I've moved out of the classroom, and now I'm a second order practitioner. But the importance of kind of relationships and that connection with children, and I suppose Jack talking about that life affirming thing, like wanting the children to want to come to school and making things very enjoyable, and them feeling like you're an adult they can trust, and these kinds of things. So I suppose, yeah, you know, sometimes maybe feeling, certainly in the context I would have taught in, that I'm behaving in a different way than I would have been had I been teaching in the type of school that I was taught in, if that makes sense, a more middle class school where the roles were much more established of the professional teacher and the very, you know, the very well-behaved students who understood the expectations of the education system. So I wonder, I suppose that does influence me. Yeah, and then I suppose as well with the children, sometimes knowing what they've been through and really feeling for them and the lives that they have outside of school. And I suppose I'm naturally somebody who kind of maybe takes on the emotions of others. And I suppose it's a double-edged sword, because then in the job that I do now, if I get a harsh email, I do take things to heart instead of maybe being able to, but I suppose with critical reflection, I've been able to separate that a bit more, and that's been really beneficial for me. And I hope I'll take that back to the classroom, you know, when I return to that kind of setting, that even though my children perhaps have sometimes horrific experiences when they're not in my care, during the time they are in my care, I just have to do the very best with the time that I have with them. Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
That's great. That's great. Seth had his hand up, but have you changed your mind, Seth? I know we're beginning to run out of time, and I know we're already 5 minutes behind schedule. Okay, I'm going to go with Kathy. You had your hand up, and I see Mags, so we'll just very snappily move on, please.
I'll try to be snappy. That was so beautiful. Thank you. I really loved it. I'm seeing, for me at least, a connection between the two pieces we've had this morning. Because there's something for me about the importance of getting feedback about what people have valued about our practice. And I suppose if I have to put that in a question, it's what would it take for us to ask much more in the moment about what people have valued in what's just happened. You know, so I'm not working in a classroom setting, but I'm working with kind of multi-profession, you know, different professions and people in communities. And I think there's something quite important that came out of the first piece about not taking things for granted. So if I have what I think is a really positive experience in a recent workshop, and I think in general it was, but there was that myth was present that you picked up on, that everything depends on the teacher, or everything depends on the researcher or the facilitator, and people come with that. So I'm interested in how we very quickly disperse that notion and try and invite people into a space where they begin to take up their own responsibilities. Now that's maybe a different question for a primary teacher than for me working almost entirely with adults. But anyway, that for me is a connection. What would it take for us to ask sooner? Because I don't think anonymous feedback after the event is that helpful. It's not as helpful as what you can get in the moment, because then you can adjust. And I think teachers know that. You have got that opportunity to very quickly think, okay, thinking on your feet, let's do something different.
Yeah, it's I suppose that reflection in practice and on practice. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move straight on to Mags so that she gets the opportunity to voice her question, and then we might just, if you wanted to respond, Ciara, and we move on then.
No, Ciara doesn't need to respond. It's just something gorgeous I see. If you look over your right shoulder, Ciara, I think, is that your identity hanging on the back of the door that you put on when you're going to be the second order practitioner? And I just think your blistering honesty this morning has touched me, because I was that person from 2003 to 2010. You just keep going with that self-study action research, because we all want to read it. Ciara, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mags. I thought I cleaned that up, but I obviously forgot.
Okay, that's brilliant. Ciara, did you want to say anything to conclude?
No, just thank you so much to everyone for their thoughtful feedback, and certainly apologies. I know there's lots of comments which I will read and try to respond to some of them. I was very nervous beforehand, so I feel like it's hard to respond after you've kind of come off presenting or whatever. But thank you so much everyone for listening and feedback. I really, really appreciate it.
Ciara, thank you so much. I think you have enriched all our lives this morning. Thank you. And the comments are really rich here on the side. And also anybody who didn't get an opportunity to question Ciara or to ask any questions, please pop your questions or comments in on the Google Doc that we have over on the Wakelet